15 names, the 70s and 80s, the two most fertile decades rock music ever produced. More riffs, more raw innovation, more genuine danger per square inch than any era before or since. And in all that noise, in the arena tours, the magazine covers, the greatest guitarist list that got reprinted every decade, 15 players changed the actual DNA of this music and barely got the credit they deserve for it. Some you know, some you think you know, but by the time we get to number one, and I mean that last entry, the name at the very top, I think you're going to feel something. Not just respect, something older than that. Something that sounds like a debt finally being paid. You click this because you care about guitar, about real rock, about the players who didn't just ride the wave, they were the wave. Let's go. Starting at number 15. Number 15, Leslie West, Mountain. Let the summer come. There's a riff. You know it the second it starts. Cowbell hits once. Then a guitar tone so thick it sounds like someone bottled electricity and poured it through a speaker. And then Leslie West opens his mouth and the whole room shifts. Mississippi Queen. $1970. If you've ever heard that song coming through a car window, through a bar jukebox, blasting from somewhere down the block, you already know what it does to a room. What you might not know is who built it. Leslie West was Mountain's co-founder, vocalist, and guitarist. Mountain performed at Woodstock in 1969, and here's the detail that should stop you cold. That was only their third gig as a band. Third! And they held down 300,000 people on that stage. A year later, Mississippi Queen hits number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100. The riff alone deserves a separate credit. But here's the thing, that wasn't the only thing Leslie West did. He was a foundational influence on a list of guitarists that includes Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and Michael Schenker. Those names, those specific names, all credited him directly. West played with two fingers, index and ring. And he once said with complete honesty, if you put 100 players in a room, 98 of them are going to sound the same. The one who plays different, who has some of his own, that's the one you remember. He had something entirely of his own. That fat, brown, bone-deep tone, that vibrato that stings like it means something personal. Mountain have been called one of the actual godfathers of heavy metal. You know, not fans, the godfathers. You hear Mississippi Queen and you understand why Sabbath, Zeppelin, Deep Purple all arrived right behind it. That riff isn't describing heavy rock. It is heavy rock. He lost his right leg to diabetes in 2011. Kept playing, died of heart failure in December 2020, and he went out with 60 million people having hummed the riff he built, most of them never knowing his name. That's where this list starts. That's the floor. It gets harder from here. Number 14, Steve Howe. Yes. Here's a question that will tell you everything. You know Roundabout, you know Heart of the Sunrise, you know the Yes catalog, or at least the shape of it, those massive labyrinthine songs where 3 or 4 styles of music happen simultaneously and somehow it holds together. You know that music. Now, can you name the guitarist? Steve Howe. And the fact that there's even a pause there, even a moment of uncertainty, tells you exactly why he belongs on this list. What Howe was doing in the early 70s was genuinely singular. He didn't play rock guitar in a rock band. He played classical, jazz, folk, 12-string acoustic steel guitar and rock, often within the same song, often within the same minute, in a hard rock context. The Yes album in 1971, Fragile the same year. Close to the Edge in 72. 3 consecutive records that contain some of the most technically sophisticated guitar work ever committed to tape in the rock genre. Heart of the Sunrise, that ascending guitar line. You've heard it, and if you've ever really listened to it, not just let it wash over you, but actually follow what Howe is doing in real time, it's dazzling. Classical technique, jazz chord voicings, all of it in service of a song that's also moving at a hard rock tempo. Guitar Player magazine's readers voted him best overall guitarist 5 consecutive years in the early 70s. 5 in a row, not once, not twice. 5 consecutive years, the readers of the most respected guitar magazine in the world said, "This is the guy." And most people outside progressive rock circles couldn't pick his face out of a lineup. That's partly the genre. Prog rock has been penalized by history in ways that are genuinely unfair, dismissed as indulgent when it was actually ambitious, dismissed as cold when it was actually precise. And Howe got caught in that dismissal. He built some of the most complex, technically demanding guitar architecture in rock. He did it in a band already full of extraordinary players, and he did it quietly, in service of the music, without the leather pants and the power stance. Sometimes that's the fastest way to get overlooked.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 13, Alex Lifeson, Rush.
It leaves a trail.
Let me ask you something. When you think about Rush, what comes to mind first? Neil Peart, the drum kit that looked like it was built for a different species, the fills that defied physics. If you've ever watched a clip of Peart behind that kit and thought, that's not humanly possible, you're not alone. Then maybe Geddy Lee, the bass and vocals thing, the way he holds down low end while simultaneously operating keyboard pedals with his feet and singing in that stratospheric register. And then, somewhere in there, Alex Lifeson. That's the problem. Not that Lifeson is forgotten within the band. Any Rush fan knows exactly who he is. The problem is that within the larger conversation about rock guitar, he's consistently placed third in his own band. And that framing has bled into how rock history talks about him generally. Here's what actually happened on those records. Limelight, 1981. That guitar solo, clean, precise, every note earning its place, is one of the most economical and emotionally articulate solos in classic rock. Nothing wasted, nothing performed for its own sake. Every bend lands somewhere true. The Spirit of Radio, the opening riff, that's Lifeson building a guitar line that shouldn't work at that tempo over those changes. And it's absolutely effortless. Tom Sawyer. The way his guitar sits under and around Lee's bass, not competing, not deferring, just breathing with it. What Lifeson built was a style that almost nobody else attempted. He took jazz chord voicings, the kind of open, ambiguous chords jazz players use, and bent them into hard rock arrangements. He mixed heavy, textured rhythm, playing with surprisingly delicate melodic lead work. He made the guitar in Rush feel like a third voice in a conversation, not an instrument being played over or under the others.
Creatures chasing out their destiny.
Melody Maker, reviewing Rush albums in the mid-70s, would write paragraphs about Peart and Lee. Lifeson got a line, sometimes less. If you've ever done the actual work, carried the weight, made everything else possible, and watched the people around you get the credit for how smooth it all ran, you understand exactly where Alex Lifeson stands in this story.
Living in their pools, they soon.
Number 12, Michael Schenker, UFO.
Don't you know I'm going fast?
17 years old, German, barely speaks English, and he walks into UFO's sessions for their 1974 album Phenomenon and writes the music for Rock Bottom, a 5+ minute guitar showcase that contains one of the most controlled, emotionally precise solos anyone had put on a hard rock record to that point. 17.
Doctor, please.
The backstory is almost as wild as the playing. Schenker had already been in the Scorpions, his brother Rudolph's band, as a teenager. He leaves the Scorpions to join UFO when they come through Germany on tour. Not gradually, not after careful deliberation. He just goes. He was already thinking like that. If an English band ever asked me, I'm going. So he joins UFO, and then over the next several years, he builds their sound from the inside out. Doctor, lights out. Only You Can Rock Me? The live album, Strangers in the Night, recorded in 1978, is still considered one of the great live hard rock records. The guitar performances on it are staggering. Here's what gets me about Michael Schenker. He had a specific kind of genius, the ability to write guitar lines that were simultaneously melodic and aggressive, both things at once, not trading off one for the other. And he did it at an age when most players are still figuring out the pentatonic scale. He left UFO in 1978, briefly rejoined the Scorpions, then in 1980 formed the Michael Schenker Group and built an entirely separate career that most casual rock fans have never encountered. Eddie Van Halen knew his name. Tony Iommi knew his name. The people who play guitar at that level, they all knew. The mainstream never quite caught up, and maybe there's something to that. Maybe the players who are most purely devoted to the instrument, who care more about what it can do than about what it can make them, are always going to be a beat behind the spotlight. Schenker had that quality all the way through. Number 11, Bernie Marsden, Whitesnake.
Hanging on the promises and songs of yesterday.
Quick question. Who wrote Here I Go Again? The version you know, the one that went to number 1 in America in 1987, the video that MTV played 600 times, the song that felt like it was coming out of every radio, every bar, every car window in the country for the entire second half of that decade. You know the song. Do you know who wrote it?
I ain't wasting no more time.
Bernie Marsden in 1982 on a 1959 Gibson Les Paul he'd bought for 500 pounds in 1974. A guitar he called the Beast. Every Whitesnake record he made had that guitar on it. He co-founded Whitesnake with David Coverdale in 1978. Co-wrote Here I Go Again, Fool for Your Lovin', Ready and Willin', and the backbone of everything that became the Whitesnake catalog. And then in 1982, he was out. Management issues, salary disputes, nobody outside the inner circle fully understood until years later. He only started receiving royalties after taking the company to court. His words, years after the fact, for music he had written himself. And then in 1987, 5 years after he left, a re-recorded version of Here I Go Again hit number 1 in America, Different guitar players, different production, slicker, bigger, airbrushed for the MTV era. His song, not him. When I played Here I Go Again to John Lord, Marsden once said, he had a certain look in his eye. He said, "John, you're a clever little sod, aren't you?" That was the moment Marsden knew the song was real, and then he watched it become someone else's moment. I
never seem to find what I'm looking for.
Kept playing, kept writing, kept doing the work with tremendous grace and skill in bands, in sessions, across a long solo career as a blues guitarist. There's a real lesson in that about who you keep playing for when the machine moves on without you. Bernie Marsden died in August 2023. He was 72. And somewhere out there are millions of people who hum that number one song from childhood to today and never knew who built it. Number 10, Martin Barre, Jethro Tull. Basing Street Studios, London. Jethro Tull is recording Aqualung. The sessions are tense, equipment breaking down, band members at odds, the whole album feeling precarious. And somewhere in the middle of all that, they get to the title track, Aqualung. The song about the homeless man by the Thames. The intro riff is Ian Anderson's. Martin Barre knows that what belongs to Martin Barre is the guitar solo in the middle of that song, the one that erupts out of the acoustic intro like something finally snapping loose. He played it in 2 takes, both times improvised, and he walked into that session knowing that if he didn't land it in 2 takes, Ian Anderson was going to replace it with a flute solo. What exists on that record instead is one of the most recognized guitar solos in rock history. Guitar Player magazine's readers ranked it among the top solos of all time. Guitar World placed it in their 100 greatest, and if you ask someone on the street who plays guitar in Jethro Tull, the answer you get, if you get an answer at all, is usually Ian Anderson, the flute guy. Martin Barre played on every Jethro Tull album from 1969 through 2003, 43 years, 20 plus studio albums, and he fought the flute every single night. You know how hard it is to make guitar work against a flute. The flute lives in a register that fights the guitar for space, and instead of one bearing the other, Barre made them talk to each other, made them necessary to each other. Steve Vai cites him, Joe Satriani cites him, Eric Johnson cites him. Geddy Lee, when reflecting on Thick as a Brick, specifically mentioned the great guitar sounds of Martin Barre as what made that record work for him. The players know, they always know. And Barre did all of it on 2 takes. Improvised, with Jimmy Page watching from the control room window downstairs, that deserves to live in rock history forever. Mostly, it doesn't. Number 9, Andy Powell, Wishbone Ash, twin lead guitar. The thing where 2 guitars don't trade solos back and forth, they play simultaneously, 2 separate melodic lines that braid together into something larger than either player could make alone. You hear it everywhere. Thin Lizzy perfected it. The Eagles used it. Iron Maiden built an entire identity on it. Before all of them, Andy Powell and Ted Turner of Wishbone Ash. The album Argus, and right there on Warrior, on The King Will Come, on Blowin' Free, 2 guitarists playing counterpoint melodic lines the way a string quartet would, not trading, not harmonizing on a riff, actually playing 2 independent lead voices at the same time that weave around each other and resolve together. Even Scott Gorham of Thin Lizzy, one half of the most famous twin guitar partnership in rock, has directly credited Wishbone Ash as a foundational influence. The thing you associate with The Boys Are Back in Town was happening 4 years earlier in Wishbone Ash's music. Andy Powell once said that he and Turner didn't set out to be innovative, they just played what felt natural, which was thinking about the guitar as an orchestral voice, not a blues soloist. Two instruments in conversation rather than one instrument at the front of a stage. That instinct, that organic decision, changed how guitar-based rock sounded for the next 50 years. And it came from a band that most people outside a very specific kind of rock fan have never heard of. Argus went to number 3 in the UK in 1972. Wishbone Ash were genuinely one of the biggest bands in Britain. And then the decade kept moving. A punk, new wave, the whole tide shifted, and most people stepped off the shore before the full impact of what Powell and Turner had built could be understood. Every twin lead harmony you've ever loved. Every time two guitars moved together and made the room feel twice as large as it was, trace that thread far enough back and you get to Andy Powell. Number 8, Robin Trower. Robin Trower spent 4 years playing guitar in Procol Harum. You know Procol Harum, A Whiter Shade of Pale, one of the most recognizable songs of the entire decade. He's on the first 5 albums. And somewhere around 1971, Trower reaches a conclusion that takes a certain kind of honesty to arrive at. This band is never going to have room for what I want to do. So he leaves, builds a trio, and in 1974 releases Bridge of Sighs. It goes to number 7 on the US Billboard 200, gold certification. And the title track, this slow descending, echo-drenched guitar piece that moves at the pace of something geological, is one of the most emotionally devastating performances on any rock record of that decade. Here's the detail that gets me. The title came from a horse. Trower saw it in a newspaper's racing page and thought, that's it. A racehorse named Bridge of Sighs. From that accidental glimpse in a sports column came one of the defining guitar moments of the 70s. People made the Hendrix comparison. And that wasn't wrong. Trower absorbed those influences, the Stratocaster through the Univibe, that swirling psychedelic motion under the notes. But what he was doing was its own language, an evolution. Hendrix opened a door and Trower built a house inside the frame. Robert Fripp took guitar lessons from Robin Trower. Let me say that again. Robert Fripp, the precise, technically immaculate architect of King Crimson, took lessons from Trower and credited him for his string, bending, and approach to tone. When the guitarist of King Crimson says you were worth learning from, that's not a footnote. That's a testament. 4 consecutive gold albums in America, 1974 to 1977, 4 in a row. And somewhere in the transition between eras, his name dropped off the list people keep. If you know his music, you already know what I'm not saying out loud. You're nodding, and if you don't, Bridge of Sighs. That's where you start. Number 7, Gary Moore.
Found out the hard way. There's a price.
Gary Moore grew up in Belfast. The 70s in Belfast were not an easy time. That specific weight, the specific tension of that city in that decade, I think it lives in his playing. You hear it in the way he bends a note. Like he's pulling something out of the ground that doesn't want to come up, but it's coming up anyway because it has to.
got the blues.
He moves through several bands and contexts over the years. Skid Row in Dublin, Coliseum 2, session work across the British Isles, and then Thin Lizzy, playing alongside Phil Lynott, and that's where casual rock history first notices him, if it notices him at all. But the moment I keep coming back to is Parisian Walkways, 1979. A duet between Moore and Lynott, guitar and voice moving slowly and certainly together, like two people walking somewhere they know they're going. That guitar solo is, and I mean this specifically, one of the most purely emotional guitar performances on any rock record of the decade. Not the fastest, not the most technical in any showy sense, the most feeling, the most real. It goes to number 8 in the UK. In America, barely a ripple. That pattern persisted in Britain and Europe. Celebrate, understood, given his full due. In the United States, where rock legend either gets canonized or gets forgotten, largely invisible. He kept making records. Moved into blues in the 90s with Still Got the Blues. That album stayed on the UK charts for 26 weeks. Joe Bonamassa has spoken about Gary Moore the way other people speak about Clapton. With that specific reverence that players use when they're talking about someone who changed what they thought was possible, Gary Moore died in February 2011. Heart attack. He was 58, and somewhere in those 58 years, in all those recordings, was a body of guitar work that should sit in the very first row when we talk about what the electric guitar can express. Some of you just said Parisian Walkways out loud. I heard you. Number 6, Randy California, Spirit. In 1967, a 16-year-old guitarist from Los Angeles named Randy Wolf was playing in Jimi Hendrix's backup band before Hendrix had even recorded his first album. The experience hadn't formed yet. Hendrix called him Randy California to distinguish him from another Randy in the band. The name stuck. A year later, Randy California co-founded Spirit, and in 1968, the band released their debut album, which included a finger-picked acoustic instrumental called Taurus, a descending guitar figure in a minor, quiet, precise, atmospheric. You've heard that guitar figure, you just know it under a different name. In 1971, Led Zeppelin released Stairway to Heaven. The opening, that finger-picked acoustic descent, was immediately recognizable to anyone who knew the Spirit record. Darren and Spirit had opened for Led Zeppelin on their first American tour in 1968. Zeppelin was familiar with the catalog. Randy California spent years saying this publicly. In 1991, he noted in an interview that Led Zeppelin had also covered Spirit's Fresh Garbage in their live sets, proof they knew the record. He never received a writing credit, never received a settlement. He died in January 1997, drowning off the coast of Hawaii while saving his young son. He was 45. His estate filed a copyright lawsuit in 2014. The case went to trial in 2016. Ultimately, Led Zeppelin prevailed. The court determined the songs weren't substantially similar, but the question of whether Randy California got what he deserved is older than any court decision. Here's what's not in dispute. He was one of the most inventive guitarists of his era. He was playing at a virtuosic level as a teenager. Spirit's I Got a Line on You in 1968, that energy, that guitar tone, should have launched him into the front line of rock conversation. Instead, his name became a footnote in someone else's story. If you're nodding right now, knowing exactly how that feels, when the thing you built becomes famous in someone else's hands, you're not alone. Number 5, Uli Jon Roth, Scorpions. The year is 1973. Michael Schenker, who at 18 has already helped rebuild the Scorpions from the inside, is leaving to join UFO. And before he goes, he does something remarkable. He picks his own replacement, a 19-year-old German guitarist named Uli Jon Roth, who he believes operates on the same frequency. One founding genius nominating the next. That's how this starts. Roth plays with the Scorpions for 5 years, 4 studio albums, Fly to the Rainbow, In Trance, Virgin Killer, Taken by Force, plus the live double album Tokyo Tapes. And in that 5-year run, he builds something that nobody had quite built before in hard rock. A neoclassical guitar language, Hendrix influence twisted through pedal tone sequences, harmonic scales borrowed from European classical music, arpeggios that sounded like they belonged in a Baroque concert hall but arrived attached to a Marshall stack. The solo on Sails of Charon from the 1977 album Taken by Force. If you've never heard it, stop and find it. Rapid fire arpeggios, Middle Eastern harmonic scales, classical techniques bent hard into a rock arrangement. Kirk Hammett of Metallica famously quoted a portion of that solo on Battery, the opening track of Master of Puppets in 1986. Quoted it directly. The opening track of one of the greatest metal albums ever made contains a direct nod to Uli Jon Roth. And then, at the height of the Scorpions' growing momentum, Roth left, 1978. He wanted to move towards something more classically oriented, more experimental, founded a band called Electric Sun, or made records that almost nobody outside a specific circle of devoted listeners ever found. The Scorpions went on to Rock You Like a Hurricane and Stadiums and Global Domination. Roth went in the opposite direction, deeper, stranger, more personal. But here's what's non-negotiable before Yngwie Malmsteen, before any of the neoclassical players who got the magazine covers, Uli Jon Roth was already doing it in 1977 in Germany for a heavy rock band, completely without a roadmap, the original, uncredited by history, credited by every guitarist who came after him. Number 4, Paul Kossoff, Free.
Baby, she's in need of a kiss. I said, hey!
All Right Now came out in 1970. You know it. That opening riff, 2.5 minutes of bare bone, soulful, chest-expanding rock. You've heard it at the start of sporting events. You've heard it coming through bar walls. You've heard it in every history of rock montage that's ever been assembled. The guitarist is Paul Kossoff. He was 19 when they recorded it. Free formed in 1968 when Kossoff was 17. He and drummer Simon Kirke, vocalist Paul Rodgers, bassist Andy Fraser, none of them over 20. And what they made together was the purest, most economical version of blues-inflected British rock ever committed to tape. No excess, no wasted motion, just tone, space, and feeling. At the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970, Free played to over 500,000 people. Eric Clapton was so struck by Kossoff's vibrato technique that he asked for a lesson. Let that land. Clapton asked Kossoff how to bend a note like that. And then the weight came down. The band fractured. Drug problems. The pressure of trying to hold together something that had broken apart once already. Baby, it's all right now. Kossoff's drug dependency grew severe. When Free finally disbanded in 1973, something in Kossoff went with it. His bandmate Simon Kirke said later that Kossoff idolized Hendrix and never really recovered from Hendrix's death in 1970, that the band breaking up took his life away. You don't come back the same from losing the thing that made you who you are, especially at 20. On the 19th of March, 1976, Paul Kossoff boarded a flight from Los Angeles to New York. He was touring America with his new band, Backstreet Crawler. He died on that plane, pulmonary embolism. He was 25 years old. The epitaph on his grave at Golders Green reads, "All right now," 3 words. The most famous thing he ever played, and most people driving past the riff on the radio have never known his name. That's what we're here to say. Number 3, Mick Ronson, David Bowie / Spiders from Mars. In 1970, David Bowie was a struggling singer-songwriter with 2 novelty singles behind him and a career that was going nowhere obvious. He was not yet a star. He was not yet Bowie. Not in the way you understand that night. And then John Cambridge went back to Hull, England, Bowie's drummer, looking for a guitarist, and found Mick Ronson marking out a rugby pitch, working as a gardener for the Parks Department. That's where he was, a gardener in Hull. What happened next changed rock forever. Ronson came south, and the combination of his guitar, classical training bent into glam rock, those melodic orchestral lead lines, the tone that was simultaneously delicate and enormous, with Bowie's theatrical vision created Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Hunky Dory, Aladdin Sane, the opening of the 70s in glam rock terms. Ronson didn't just play guitar on those records. He arranged them. He co-wrote significant portions of the music. He was the sonic architecture that Bowie's ideas stood inside. Here's what got buried. When Mick Ronson was working as a guitarist and co-writer on those records, his managers told him arrangers don't get publishing credit. He was never paid what his contributions warranted. Bowie knew it and struggled with it for years. A filmmaker who later documented Ronson's life said that Bowie wanted to address it, but didn't know how. Ronson also produced Lou Reed's Transformer, the album that contains Walk on the Wild Side, played guitar and piano and wrote string arrangements. It is considered one of the great rock albums of that decade. His name is on it. The credit was never close to proportional to the work. In 1982, he was working on John Mellencamp's American Fool. The song Jack and Diane wasn't coming together in the studio. Ronson suggested the middle section, the choir-style hook that carries the song. That became the moment Jack and Diane went from a problem to a #1 single. He recorded the guitar solo on his very last session the night before he died. Liver cancer, April 29th, 1993. He was 46. He had planned to reconnect and collaborate again with Bowie. They had been talking, they had barely started. Bowie said afterward that if Mick had lived, he would have become one of rock's great producers, arrangers, and remained one of its great guitarists. He was already all 3. He just didn't get to stay long enough for the record to fully reflect it. Number 2, Rory Gallagher. In 1975, the Rolling Stones are looking for a new guitarist. Mick Taylor has just left. They spread their net wide. And among the names that end up in that conversation is an Irish guitar player from Cork named Rory Gallagher. He flies to Rotterdam. Jagger personally meets him at the airport. They rehearse for 3 days. By all accounts, Gallagher plays well enough that the job is essentially his. Marshall Chess, the Stones manager, tells him directly, "I knew you were the man for the job." But here's where the story gets complicated. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards aren't speaking to each other. Richards is somewhere in his hotel, unreachable. Gallagher has a Japanese tour starting the next morning and needs an answer. He goes up to Richards' suite. Richards is unconscious. He goes back every 30 minutes through the night trying to rouse him. At some point before dawn, Gallagher writes a note with his contact details, leaves it, and takes the flight to Tokyo. He never heard from them again. Ronnie Wood got the gig. Bill Wyman said later that the Stones felt Gallagher wasn't the kind of character that would fit, that he would have just played solos rather than being subservient to two big egos. And maybe Wyman was right. Rory Gallagher could never have been subservient to anyone's ego. He was too devoted to the actual music. Here's the thing about Rory Gallagher that should be taught in every conversation about rock guitar. When someone asked Jimi Hendrix, at the height of his powers, widely regarded as the greatest rock guitarist alive, "What's it like to be the best rock guitarist in the world?" Hendrix paused and said, "I don't know. Ask Rory Gallagher." He sold 30 million records over his lifetime. He played over 2,000 concerts. He died in June 1995 at 47, complications following a liver transplant. And he left behind a catalog that most people who love rock guitar have heard about, but not yet found their way into. If you have found your way in, you know what I'm not saying out loud. There's a whole country in that music, and most of the map still isn't posted on the walls. He's number 2 only because what comes next is the most criminal omission on this entire list. Number 1, Mick Ronson. Wait, I told you that story already at number 3, so let me tell you the rest of it, the part that earns him the top spot. Because here's the question that's been underneath this entire countdown. What does it mean to be criminally underrated? It's not just about mainstream obscurity. It's not just about sales figures or chart positions. It's about consequence, about how much of what you love was built by hands you never learned to name. Think about this. Without Mick Ronson, specifically his guitar, his arrangements, his orchestral instincts applied to hard rock, there is no Ziggy Stardust, the album that launched Bowie, the album that opened the 70s wide enough for everyone from punk to new wave to glam metal to walk through. Without that record, the map of what rock became is genuinely different. And without Mick Ronson's Transformer, where he played, arranged, and co-produced the record that put Lou Reed back on the artistic map, Walk on the Wild Side doesn't exist in the form you know it. And without Mick Ronson in the studio in 1982, Jack and Diane is a song John Mellencamp abandons, not a number 1 single. Those 3 things, 3 consequential moments in rock history: the birth of glam, the survival of Lou Reed's solo career, and one of the defining pop rock songs of the early 80s. All of them carry his fingerprints. Most people have never once thought about his name in connection with any of them. He co-wrote large portions of the Bowie catalog and received no publishing revenue from it because arrangers don't get publishing credit. He died of liver cancer at 46, recording guitar until the night before his death. His last fully completed session was a guest solo on an album by a band called the Wild Hearts. A guest solo. His final musical act was someone else's record. Bowie recorded his memories and praise for a posthumous documentary about Ronson, wrote the chapter structure himself, gave it as a gift to Ronson's widow, because the filmmaker said he wrote the chapters for that documentary. That was his gift. That's a big, big statement. The biggest gift David Bowie ever made someone was finally telling the story of the man who built the world Bowie became famous in. That's who we're talking about. That's what Criminal looks like in this context. Mick Ronson, number 1.